This is macOS Ken.
A long look at Apple pricing questions. The next round of developer betas is out. And Eddie the all-encompassing hits Cannes Lions. It is Tuesday, the 23rd of June, 2026. I'm Ken Ray, and this is news from macOS Ken. Brought to you by yours truly and sponsored by OneSkin, a new standard for your skin. Try it now with 15% off using code macOSKen at oneskin.co/macOSken. This show is also sponsored by Clean My Mac, keeping Macs running smoothly since 2008. I am a fan of specialists, of tools built for a specific purpose. Can I sharpen a pencil with a knife? Yes, I can. Would I prefer a good pencil sharpener? Every time. Yes, we are still talking about Clean My Mac. If you take joy in matching duplicate files on your own, scoping your cloud storage, rooting out weird bits of installs left on your computer since who knows when, find your bliss. For the rest of us, there's Clean My Mac. It goes after those duplicate files, those cloud storage hogs, those installation remnants, and other issues that can slow our Macs down. It's not that you can't do it yourself, but you didn't buy a Mac to maintain it. Let Clean My Mac do the work of keeping your Mac optimized so you can do the stuff you actually bought it for. Get tidy today. Try 7 days free and use my code macOSKen20 for 20% off at clnmy.com/macOSKen. Make macOS Ken all caps both places. That way they know where you heard about it and you get the discount. Try 7 days free and use my code macOSKen20 for 20% off at clnmy.com/macOSKen. Again, macOS Ken is all caps, both places. Use code macOSKen20 for 20% off at clnmy.com/macOSKen. Apple is going to raise device prices, but when? That was the headline from a post on Daring Fireball, though it touches a question being bandied by many. That iPhone 18 Pro will come with a higher starting price is starting to feel like a given, a dead cert, as our friends across the pond might say. There are others, though, who think prices on existing iPhones could go up as soon as this month, which has 1 week left. Let's look at a post from TrendForce that has prices on DDR2 going up. In case you've forgotten, a post from TechTerm says DDR2 RAM was the second generation version of DDR, or double data rate memory, and offered higher speeds and improved efficiency than the original DDR standard. It was common in desktop and laptop computers from about 2004 through 2009 before being replaced by DDR3. Wikipedia tells me that they're currently up to DDR5, and yet TrendForce says prices are skyrocketing for DDR2 and DDR3. What the what? According to the firm, structural tightening in mature node DRAM supply is forcing consumer DRAM buyers to adopt legacy memory products to secure larger supply allocations. This has triggered a new wave of demand for procuring older generation DRAM components, driving continued price momentum across legacy products such as DDR2 and DDR3. Following strong gains in the first quarter, TrendForce says it expects DDR2 contract prices will rise by approximately 55 to 60% in the second quarter, followed by a further 35 to 40% increase in Q3. Now, I mention all that to, well, I don't want to say justify. I mention all of that to explain why iPhones that have been on the market for close to a year might suddenly get more expensive. Not that DDR2 is going to magically end up in the iPhone 17 line. Rather, the industry's sudden lurch to memory that stopped being standard 15 years ago illustrates better than anything I've seen how insanely tight memory supply is. And it's not like Apple made all the iPhone 17s it would need before September of last year. They didn't even hit supply-demand balance until the first part of this year. They're thought to have locked in prices as best they could and bought ahead as best they could, but they don't keep a lot of inventory on hand. If they want to have more, they're going to have to make more, and that's going to cost more. And that will bring us back to dough. Maybe the average iPhone buyers, and maybe more of it. It was last week that Apple CEO Tim Cook told the Wall Street Journal that price increases for Apple hardware are unavoidable and that leaving prices where they are is unsustainable. The Journal had Cook saying that he's never seen anything like it in any area over 40 years, and it's worth remembering he has seen COVID and the supply chain disruptions that followed. Some said it was good of Cook to take the hit. They assumed he was telegraphing higher prices for this fall's iPhones to shield incoming CEO John Turnus from the ill will he'd garner by making his first act as CEO raising prices on devices. Then in walked Bloomberg's Mark Gurman. Mac Rumors had him hitting the Heil site late last week, saying regarding Apple price hikes, have to imagine these are fairly imminent. No other reason to flag them now. I'd also note that Apple back-to-school sale is very imminent, and it could make sense to tie these together as a buffer. Either way, this is happening soon, not a fall thing. See, what's troubling about that, he starts by saying one has to imagine, then shifts to stating as certainty. A piece from Ben Lovejoy at 9to5Mac says Gurman isn't claiming any insider knowledge on this. The phrasing makes it very clear he's speculating. Well, I guess if you stop at the first sentence. Anyway, Gurman seems to think that prices on current Apple devices could go up any minute, and so does 9to5's Lovejoy. He offers 3 reasons, many of which will sound familiar. First, Apple has historically worked to protect its margins. He does not see that stopping now. Second, not unlike speculation around the Wall Street Journal interview, exiting CEO Cook may choose to raise prices on Apple devices to shield incoming CEO Turnus from having to raise prices first thing. Interestingly, Lovejoy seems to think that Cook could raise prices on the current iPhones enough that Turnus could intro iPhone 18 Pro saying, prices stayed the same. Not same as last year, but not going up from current levels. Third, Tim Cook's last earnings call will probably happen next month. Lovejoy thinks Apple may not want to see him leave while announcing reduced earnings. That third reason seems like the weakest of the 3 to me, but what do I know? And to be clear, Lovejoy is just speculating, a point he makes crystal in his post. Daring Fireball's John Gruber is not convinced that prices on Apple devices are going up anytime soon. I mentioned his post earlier. Apple is going to raise device prices, but when? He's where we all were a few days ago, thinking that Cook's warning is about the fall, starting with the iPhone 18 Pro and Folding Ultra in September, and he issued the warning months early just to make the bad news old news by the time September gets here. But Gruber's not firm in that conviction. Quoting his post again, however out of character it would be for Apple to raise prices midway through product cycles, the global RAM shortage is unprecedented. I wouldn't be surprised if Apple pushes price increases moments after I hit publish on this post. I am checking right now, says Gruber, before I hit the button, in fact. Oh, to have that luxury. Making Me Ill was part of a post from Ben Thompson's Stratechery that was highlighted by Apple 3.0. Actually, it wasn't Thompson's post that hit me the hardest. After years of following his work, Philip Elmer-DeWitt's take on Thompson's post kind of struck me as ugly. People who thought Apple would sacrifice margins for market share were erroneous in their thinking, as Thomson's thinking. Not groundbreaking that, Tim Cook said it 6 days ago. Thomson's basic argument is that iPhone buyers are also willing to pay for things like App Store subscriptions. More price-sensitive customers are likely to be less profitable in all sorts of ways than Apple's existing customer base. And besides, he argues, it's not like keeping prices the same would suddenly mean more customers. The way Thomson sees it, not raising prices doesn't mean cutting prices. What is actually going to happen to price-sensitive customers is they are simply not going to get new phones, not suddenly spend much more just because iPhones are relatively cheaper, and even then probably more expensive than whatever else they were going to buy. No, says Thomson, Apple is right to protect their margin and continue slowly expanding their market share through differentiation, not pricing. I think it's his use of the term right that gets me. You can say it makes good business sense, but when you say it's right, that's followed by Philip Elmer DeWitt's take, Apple already has the good customers. Why would it sacrifice margins to go after the bad customers? 100% owning that I am being that guy right now. They're not bad customers. They are people who don't have as much money as other people. I got a great email from listener Dave on Monday. I won't do the whole thing, though I do want to focus on the middle bit. Dave asked why iPhone margin is considered an immovable object. The way he sees it, it could be a great strategic move for Apple to hold prices steady or have a small increase for the iPhone 18 launch, even if margin is lower. RAMnarök. Thank you, Dave.
RAMnarök
is hitting everyone, says Dave, so if Apple can take a hit, they can win the market share race. With the stickiness of the iPhone ecosystem, this crisis can be an opportunity. You know, that's actually part that Thomson seems to have missed. Keeping prices the same doesn't just attract the hoi polloi, those common people deemed bad in the eyes of the Lord. If Samsung's Galaxy whatever and Google's Pixel Yaya suddenly cost more, even the cost insensitive who bought those premium smartphones might suddenly be iPhone curious. Enough to affect market share? I don't know. But if they've got money, they can afford an iPhone and they'll probably pay for services. Just ask Stratechery's Ben Thompson. Of course, this is all angels on the head of a pin stuff at this point. Tim Cook has said that prices are going to go up, so prices are going to go up. Apple is going to raise device prices, but when? More stuff in a moment, but first a word from today's sponsor, OneSkin, a new standard for your skin. I've told you how into OneSkin's OS 1 face I am. It's made my face feel softer and taken care of dry, flaky patches I've had for years. Big fan. With summer well underway, you might be spending more time in the sun. If so, you'll want to check out OneSkin's Face SPF. It's got the same great skincare benefits you find in OS 1 Face, while adding mineral SPF protection from UV exposure. So it works on your skin today and protects against future UV damage. Learn more at oneskin.co/macOSken. With over a decade of research behind it, OneSkin's OS 1 peptide is proven to target the visible signs of aging, helping you unlock your healthiest skin now and as you age. For a limited time, try OneSkin with 15% off using code macOSken at oneskin.co/macOSken. That's 15% off oneskin.co with code macOSken. When they ask where you heard about them, please make sure you tell them it was macOS Ken. Try OneSkin now with 15% off using code macOSKen at oneskin.co/macOSKen. Hot newness for developers to start the week. Pieces from Mac Rumors had Apple on Monday seeding the second betas of blankOS 27 to members of its developer program. That includes iOS and iPadOS 27, macOS 27 Golden Gate, tvOS 27, and visionOS 27. There was even beta firmware for AirPods Max 2, according to a piece from 9to5Mac. Apparently part of the iOS and macOS betas, the piece says developers can enroll their AirPods Max 2 in the beta firmware program by enabling the AirPods beta updates toggle in the headphone settings. No word on the second developer beta for watchOS 27. As often seems to be the case, that one is apparently running late, which is never not amusing. Apple Wallet in iOS 27 may Sherlock some finance tracking apps. 9to5Mac has had a poke around the second iOS developer beta. What they have found is a feature called Insights. See spending insights and more, says Apple. Connect accounts to Wallet to see spending insights, recurring transactions, account balances, and more. With this new feature, says 9to5Mac, data from the various payment accounts you have saved in Wallet will be aggregated to offer financial insights about trends, total spending, and more. And finally today, the ad industry-focused Cannes Lions International Festival of Creativity is underway, and they've honored their 2026 Person of the Year, Eddie the All-Encompassing Q. The Hollywood Reporter had Apple's Senior VP Services and Health appearing with movie mega-producer Jerry Bruckheimer. He produced the Apple mega-hit F1, the movie. Shocking no one, they're hoping to make a sequel. Quoting Q, "We're going to do it again. Hopefully we're doing another Formula One movie. I think everyone wants to see another one. It was Brad Pitt's biggest movie of all time. It was a great story. It was fun. And you loved it when you were walking out of the theater or watching it at home." I think he means you loved it right after you saw it, not loved leaving. Unfortunately, they didn't tackle the biggest question I have. What are we calling it? F2? F1? 2? I'm tortured. The two also talked about the UFO conspiracy thriller they're working on with F1 director Joseph Kosinski, so that's still happening. Q also addressed Apple making its own shows and movies rather than buying a catalog, stressing that for him, it's about the best content, not the most. You know, it would have been really neat to put that event on Apple TV. Oh well. macOS Ken, brought to you by me and sponsored by Clean My Mac. Try 7 days free and use my code macOSKen20 for 20% off at clnmy.com/macOSken. This show is also sponsored by OneSkin, a new standard for your skin. Try it now with 15% off using code macOSKen at oneskin.co/macOSken. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media, online at backbeatmedia.com. You can find me on Mastodon, macOSken at mastodon.social. You can also send me an email, info@macosken.com. Until next time, that is news from macOS Ken. I'm Ken Ray.
It's still sunny.